Hello, today we're going to be talking about how you manage your anxiety and maybe if what you're doing isn't working, and if it's not working, maybe it's time to change. Now, none of us like anxiety, of course we don't, and the initial reaction is, the impulse reaction is make it go away. I don't want to hit, you don't want this anxiety, I don't want to feel this anxiety. So what do you do to avoid that anxiety? What is it that you're doing that may not be helping? So avoiding the anxiety is what we tend to do most of the time. So don't like it, don't want to feel it. So what are your coping strategies? Sometimes the coping strategies in how to avoid the anxiety can actually be worse than the anxiety itself. So for example, you feel anxious about going to work or maybe going to school. So what do? You avoid going to school, the results of which you don't get your grades, or you don't get a job, and you don't get money, and you don't live the fulfilling life that you really want. You may also find in relationships, you believe that the anxiety, or it may be that there's something in your relationship that's causing you some anxiety. So maybe pushing your partner away to alleviate that anxiety. But is that really the solution? And what if there was a different solution? Now, clinical studies tell us that if we actually expose ourselves to the anxiety, it can actually lessen it. And I'm not saying to create or cause more anxiety, but for example, you take two sets of people, two people. One person will say, I'm really scared of flying, but I'm going to do it anyway because I want to go on that holiday or I want to meet my family. The other person would say, no, the thought of getting on that plane is just too much for me. I'd rather avoid it. I'd rather not go. That's anxiety. Now, phobia, on the other hand, is when it interferes with our life to such an extent that we're avoiding everything and we get into such a panic about carrying out the activity, such as getting on a plane, that it causes us huge distress and perhaps panic attacks. That's something for another lesson. So we're just going to focus on the anxiety at the moment. So you have two people, one who doesn't want to do it but will do it anyway, and the other person who avoids doing the activity. And when those people are interviewed afterwards, studies showed that the person who actually went through with, say, getting on that plane, doing it, their anxiety rated less than the person who avoided it. And in some instances, the person or people that avoid their anxieties, they tend to find their anxiety increases because anxiety tends to make our world smaller. It limits our ability to do things. And anxiety has a way of taking hold, and perhaps you may be anxious about one thing, and then that part of your brain, the reticular activating system, will then start to scan out there and determine, oh, maybe there are other things you need to be scared of. So you may just be scared of getting on a plane. And then it might be, I'm scared of getting in a car. I'm scared of getting on the bus. And then what happens? You don't go to see your friends. You don't go to see your family. Your world starts to shrink, basically. So that's not good. So if you have anxiety in a relationship, for example, or anxiety about meeting other people, strangers, work back as to when this probably started, how this originated. This is all about going back to the cause, not just working on the symptoms, but going back to finding out what happened in your younger life, perhaps, or what happened in your earlier years, or even as growing up, that may have contributed to this fear of socializing. So social anxiety is quite a common one, and we avoid strangers, we avoid people. So what is it that's going on? Is there a fear of you being judged by these other people? Do you fear that they will think that you are not as good as they are? This is a reflection of what's going on inside you. It's got nothing to do with the other person. And this is where we make the common mistake of believing the anxiety symptoms we're experiencing, such as heart racing, shortness of breath, and wanting to get out of there means that you are in danger and that this other person, this stranger, poses a threat. When in actual fact, it's what's going on in our heads. It's what's happened, maybe in the past. It may be that your parents brought you up to to watch what you say, be careful how you say things, think of what other people, how they judge you. You could have been raised in that environment. You may have been humiliated as a child, and that may be a memory for you to work on as well. But again, coming back to like looking at other people and fearing their responses, remember, it's what's going on inside of you. It's not about them. The mind can tell us stories. It makes up things. The majority of the time, the stories that you hear are made up. They're not real. And yet we don't challenge them, or we fail to challenge them. And there's the other mistake. We don't question. We just assume. This must be right. This must be just the way it is. I must be feeling like this because that other person is a danger to me. Without questioning, could this sensation, could this emotion that I'm feeling right now be related to something that happened in the past that I'm still being triggered by? You see? So the simple lesson here is stop avoiding the anxiety because that's causing more problems. Is it possible to learn to understand your anxiety? Is it possible to just allow yourself to sit with those uncomfortable feelings just a little bit longer and notice what happens? See, emotions do not stay in our body 24/7. So is it possible just to perhaps, instead of judging these feelings of anxiety and going, oh, I don't like it, I want to get away from it, what if you took the opposite and going, hey, what's going on here? I'm curious. Let me explore this. What's that sensation going on in my body right now? Can I breathe into this? Can I just notice it without judging it or assuming? What difference do you think that would make? Another form of avoiding anxiety is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, obsessive compulsive disorder, I will talk about in a separate video because it merits longer than I can give you here. But again, with OCD, what we're trying to avoid is those uncomfortable feelings. So when a thought is being triggered, if I touch that, if I eat that, or if I do something, I might get germs, I might harm somebody, I might cause something bad to happen. I'm going to feel this feeling of anxiety. And generally it's because something bad is going to happen. The belief is there that something bad is going to happen. OCD tends to develop from a sense of guilt, usually following a trauma. So it would help to work on that trauma of surrounding the guilt or surrounding the OCD behaviors. So there's OCD obsessions, and thoughts can be obsessive too. Negative thoughts can just go around and ruminate around in your mind. These are negative thoughts that can be obsessive. Those are OCD behaviors. Then there's the compulsions, the urge, the need to carry out a behavior or an action in order to avoid the anxiety. So if I wash my hands, it means I've got rid of the germs. That will relieve my anxiety. It doesn't. It actually doesn't. Momentarily it does, but then the anxious mind will start to learn, oh, this is what you do when you feel anxious. So carry out the behavior, and the behavior becomes habitual. Now, there is a part of that brain which will build a pathway which will say, oh, this is the behavior you carry out each time you feel this anxiety. You need to wash your hands, or you need to check that door or the light switches several times, because that's the only way to alleviate the anxiety. There's the other mistake, believing that carrying out the behavior is the only way of avoiding the anxiety. So you see What's happening again? It's the avoidance. So following this video, if you could practice some deep, mindful breathing and carry out some tapping each time you feel that anxiety coming on, and then just tolerate that feeling as best you can, understand it, be curious about it. The techniques I'm talking about will be taught in another video, but for now, I hope this information will help you understand and stop avoiding the anxiety. Thank you.